Well, here's something even I don't see every day. Talk about a odd antique weapon. This is a circa 1580 Dual-Wheellock multi-shot rifle. It's from Germany and would have been the cutting edge of technology at the time. It's also exquisitely decorated, as you can see. And the wheel-lock firing mechanism, once again, not a firearms expert at all, is basically the first big improvement from the older matchlock technology. And remember, I said it was a double wheel lock, so you're going to see two separate mechanisms on here, which on any gun, modern or ancient, is an unusual sight. Sorry for the vertical video, we'll get past that in a second, but I just love looking at this thing so much I wanted as many angles and images as possible. I mean, I was just amazed by the level of detail, both functional and aesthetic, on this thing. Another thing is that it's been maintained in obviously just amazing condition. Remember, this is a 16th century product. Hopefully I can avoid getting completely out of my depth here when I talk about the intent of the design. It's basically about letting the user, the no doubt very rich user, get off as many shots as possible. 16, in fact. So, again, late 1500s, that's pretty impressive. It fired a volley of 9, followed by a volley of 7. The wheel lock in the middle of the barrel fired the former, and the one at the rear, the latter. I appreciate how the information placard explained this and just cut through all the complexities by saying that it fired them, all of the ammunition, Roman candle style. In other words, once you start, there's no stopping. And just in case this wasn't complicated enough, it actually has a third mechanism, an older matchlock system, which it says served as the backup ignition system. Because it would surely be embarrassing to pull out this showpiece and then have it misfire. And all of that machinery is part of what gives this such an exquisite kind of almost clockwork look. And we talked about how ahead of its time this was. Think about like the American Revolution, for just one example, came much, much later, and the soldiers there, of course, were having to fire and reload, etc., one at a time. If you'll notice, we've moved past the rear barrel mechanism and are making our way to the mid-barrel one. And there it is. You can see the telltale jaws on the right of that mechanism. This is what clamped down on the clump of material that would cause the sparks when struck, which would ignite the gunpowder, and of course get the whole thing going. Sorry for all the shadows there, this is the best I could do because of the display case. And yeah, it's just pretty amazing, so here I go from one end to the other on the other side. It's just a stunning piece. Obviously, very little of the surface was left untouched in terms of decorative elements, although tastefully, right? I'm not saying every inch of it. And the art really shows the age of the piece, just the actual style, right? It's Renaissance, but it's almost like late medieval looking with some of the bestiary type stuff. So here's the barrel. One of the factoids they did not have listed was the weight of this weapon, and I would love to know that. I've said this before for other pieces, but it's never been more true than for this one. I'd also love to know the man-hours that went into making this. We can safely assume it was a lot, and part of the reason why you don't see many of these. This was not mass-produced in any way, right? Not a lot of armies walking around with all kinds of soldiers holding these. Here's the depiction of a well-dressed gentleman. I just want to let you see all the various different parts of this thing. I would think this thing would be interesting even just from a pure art historian standpoint. You know, what's some of the iconography about? And then, of course, here's more of the mechanical side. Just coming into view on the upper right is the pyrite. That's the material that would have been used to create the sparks. Let's get a bit of a close-up. There we go. And those sparks would, of course, light the gunpowder in the pan, and then that would communicate with the inside of the barrel where the charges that propel the bullets would catch on fire, basically. And, you know, I talked about the Roman candle type mechanism. So imagine all this, it's called stacked ammunition. One takes off, lights takes off, then the one behind it does the same thing, and so on. This is a 67 caliber barrel, by the way. I think it must have been a monster to hold. It's just a little bit of detail here on the trigger guard. Notice the ivory plate on the left has a man loading a firearm. And then here's a detail on that fantastic creature. Another animal featured here, and it's a tiny little part, so they just decorated as much as they could. I love the look of this thing. And we haven't focused on this end of the weapon very much, have we? So there's a brief look. And this face really looks like something drawn by Mobius. Sorry, comic book reference. You're going to get that with me. And these numbers on the barrel, by the way, they mark off the actual charges. so you can see where they sat before taking off. You know, there's other multiple wheel lock firearms that you can find, but it seems like most of the time those are multiple barrels. So you have one wheel lock for one barrel and another wheel lock for the other barrel. And this one, of course, goes about it an entirely different way. So here's the last piece of the weapon that we have not seen yet. One more piece of art on an overall work of art. Thank you.